actually, we did a big launch party. We had 70 plus people who joined us. It was a brilliant evening in May. And I'd been given the advice beforehand, look, just when you're looking out of the room, when you're doing your launch and you're really wanting to sell yourself well, just pick one person in the room and think, if they say yes, if they want us, then we've won. Don't try and get all 70. There's just no way, even though we all want that. And I picked him in my head. Didn't tell anyone. And that very night after the event, he was the only one who emailed me to say, I mean, people emailed to say various different things, but he said, I want you, I'm ready, call me tomorrow.
Welcome to Career Coaching Secrets, the podcast where we talk with successful career coaches on how they built their success and the hard lessons they learned along the way. My name is Davis Nguyen, and I'm the founder of Purple Circle, where we help career coaches scale their business to $100,000 years, $100,000 months, and even $100,000 weeks. Before Purple Circle, I've grown several 7- and 8-figure career coaching businesses myself, and have been a consultant at 2 career coaching businesses that are doing over $100 million each. Whether you're an established coach or building your practice for the first time, you'll discover the secrets to elevating your coaching business.
Welcome to Career Coaching Secrets Podcast. I'm Kevin, and today we're joined by Laura Mears. She is the founder of Salmon Leadership Development, and across the pond, she's from the UK. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. It's lovely to be here.
Yeah, one of the things I'm so curious about is the beginning, the origin story, the lore. You could have been a lot of different things. You could have been a marine biologist. You could have been like a swim teacher. But out of all the things that you chose or could have done, you chose coaching. And not only that, you chose to turn it into a business. So how did you end up here? What made you decide this profession and, more importantly, turn it into a business?
Yeah, thanks, Kevin. Well, my background was education. So I came straight out of academia into education and did a lot of really fun things with that. Led a department. We set up a sister school in Uganda, which was incredible. I learned to ski. Had lots of opportunities within that to use my gifts and skills. It was a really big commitment, that role, 6 days a week. And I met my husband doing the role too. So we were both 6 days a week. So when we decided to start a family, we realized that something might have to give. And that was when we chose that I would step down from that. So I did some writing and so on while the kids were little. So I fitted in some different work around that. Meanwhile, my husband is having second thoughts about teaching, and he's saying to himself, am I really suited to this? Am I good at this? Because he felt like a square peg in a round hole. So a friend of ours said, before you quit, James, before you quit teaching, go and talk to my friend who's a coach. Yeah. So James thought this was a good idea. So he went and had 24 hours with a leadership coach and the 2 guys that the leadership coach was training. So he had 3 guys working with him as a 360 for 24 hours. And I picked him up at the end of that. We were taking a trip to France, and I picked him up with the baby, and I said, how are you? And he could hardly speak. Now, this is a real extroverted guy, real bouncy. He could hardly speak because he was absolutely blown away. He was just blown away by feeling known, feeling seen, feeling understood. And not only that, having vision, which is incredibly important for his personality. So he oscillated between absolute silence and then just verbal diarrhea. And so we just dug down into that. And I said, okay, what are you going to do? And he said, I'm going to stay as a teacher, but I'm going to start teaching with my voice, not anyone else's voice. And not only that, I'm actually going to build coaching into my teaching offering as well. So my story started with his story.
Yeah. And I'm so curious, how did you come up with the name Salmon Leadership Development? I'm so curious about that.
So what happened after that is linked with the story. So he sort of wouldn't stop talking about it. And he was saying, this is your next career, Laura. This is the next phase. You need to do this leadership coaching. Steve has just changed my life. I think this is what you should do. And he's a real visionary, and I do trust that creative voice. But I thought, hang on, I'm going to wait and see the impact this has. I really value competency, and I like to see the effect of something, cause and effect. So I thought, okay, well, we'll see. I'm going to stop and I'm going to watch. And I saw at first hand my husband's life change. I saw him change his rhythms. I saw him get much, much higher. His results were good. They went from good to excellent. He built his influence. People within the educational environment he's in, which is a cluster of schools, nurseries, and it's really quite outward looking, started to come to him for advice. He did his leadership coaching training. He's now in a position as the lead within that educational establishment, the coaching lead there, which really suits him. And I saw all of this happening. I saw how he was showing up with me, how he was showing up with the kids. And I just thought, wow, I can't deny the impact coaching has had on his life. I want to do that. I want to be a conduit for others to have that kind of impact too. So then I did my coaching training. So I went and did mine. Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, this is all interrelated. It's great questions. It's also interconnected. But I did mine. So I went and we were working with an organization called Giant Worldwide, who are a fantastic community. And I went and did my training, and then it was my turn to be just silenced in awe. Wow, wow, this is so helpful. And it all starts with that personality self-awareness deep dive. And that's when you go, why didn't I know this when I was a kid, when I was a teen, when I was making mistakes in my 20s? This is absolute gold. So what we began to feel and began to realize was this is all about knowing yourself and about being intentional. And the word that kept coming up for us was intentionality. And that's why we're called salmon, is because salmon, fish, everything floats downstream. It just moves downstream. But at some point, the salmon becomes intentional about fruitfulness, about flourishing, and not just about drifting downstream. And that's when they turn and they start to go intentionally upstream. And that's incredible. So that's a major aspect of why we're called salmon. There's other reasons too, but that's the major aspect.
So beautiful. I love that. Yeah. One of my favorite things are those salmon documentaries where they talk about the journey of the salmon and stuff. And it's so interesting, and it's so beautiful that the imagery and I was looking at your logo before this podcast and stuff, and it's of a salmon fish and all that too. That's really, really cool. So you have this profound experience at this training, right? But then it's not, I think that's one part of it. How did you get your first coaching clients? How did you decide what type of coaching you want to do? I'm kind of curious about that.
Well, I think perhaps similarly to other coaches, you start with your network. So we began by doing a webinar, and we invited all of our best friends and our kids' godparents and stuff to come on this for free. And it was during COVID, so lots of people were really up for something that would be nourishing and would feed them. And we just started using the tools that we'd learned through the coaching community, through the training we'd done. And we started just to test out these tools and test out co-coaching. We'd actually taught together, so we knew we could do that. And we started co-coaching with them. And then through that, we gained a whole kind of plethora of testimonials and also experience in different sectors, because they're a talented crew. And then we were able to just build our confidence, and it confirmed what we felt and what we knew, which was that this is useful in any sector because people is people. So that was a real confidence builder. So we started by just serving our friends for free. And from that then, what span off was some one-to-one opportunities to coach, particularly in the background I had was education. So I coached headmasters, and I'd coach them and for a couple of times for free. And then I'd say, after the second or third time, I'd say, look, I don't know about you, but I'd love to make this a regular thing. Has this been useful? Yes, it's been really useful. Would you like a few details on how this could become regular, what that might look like? And they said, yeah, absolutely. Please send them over. It was as simple as that. One courageous sentence. Can I send you some details on what it would look like for this to be a paid thing that happens regularly, for you to be a priority client for me? Yes. And that converted. Every time I said that, it converted into a client. So that was really good. So I started to build up that one-to-one aspect. So that was one offering I had. And then the other one was a series of workshops for teams. And I began by serving nonprofit just in my local community, some great charities doing wonderful things. And I just said, can I come and test out this material on you for free initially? And then built up my testimonials from that. And then I was able to start offering it again in the educational space. And then from that, it was like someone who was on the course, their husband ran a business. So do you do this in businesses as well? Yes, I do. So I just started out with those two offerings, and I got really good at them. I did loads and loads and loads of reps to get really confident and really good in the material so I could build up to being able to feel that I could go into any environment and coach anyone.
What was the defining moment when you decided to, like, we talked about intention, right? But what was the defining moment where you kind of really set the intention where I'm like, I'm actually going to turn it into a business. This is more than just a side thing for me.
That's so good. It was a personal motivation, Kevin, actually. So my sons at the time were at a school that had been brilliant for them so far. But then during COVID, the school just shrank, and there wasn't so much place to play because everyone had to have their apportioned play areas. My son needs to move. He's really, really sporty, and he was in the same seat all day. He was in the same square of playground all afternoon. And I just thought, and he was miserable. He started biting his nails. He was a really happy, cheerful kid. And I just thought, this isn't right for him. It's not right. And where my husband was working, it was a private school and it had incredible sporting facilities. So he was seeing the kids that were Gilbert's comparative age, walking over to the tennis courts, walking over to the hockey pitch, walking over to the swimming pool, having all of this adventure. And we just began to go, could we do this? This is a fee-paying school. You could come on a sports scholarship, but even so, are we able to do this? And so I put behind my laptop a photograph of my son, who'd gone to this school as a kindergarten student, winning the race, wearing the logo of the school, winning his sports race, looking so happy, headmaster behind, clapping him. I put it behind my laptop and I just wrote Easter. And it was my goal. I wrote down how much I needed to earn to be able to send him to this school. I wrote the exact amount on a post-it note right next to the photograph. And honestly, it's so true that when you write something down and get clear on a goal, especially when it relates to something in your heart, you're so much more likely to attain it. And, I'm just so thankful that actually it didn't even take till Easter. We did it by Christmas. And we not only moved him, but we moved his brother as well. That was hard earned. It was hard fought for, and there was sacrifice. But how brilliant is that? I mean, that really gave me that real kick I needed to make it a business.
That's so beautiful. I love how you just like wrote down the goal, you wrote down Easter, and like you hit it in 1 week, which is crazy. But then it's so beautiful just to see like, oh, how the reticular activating system like works. Like when you set an intention, you begin to see all the solutions around you too. So that's amazing. Okay. So I kind of want your experience on this. So like, as you know, when you decide to turn in a business, a big part of it is marketing, right? And so I guess like, how has your marketing evolved? What kind of marketing are you doing? How do people find you?
That's great. Well, I think I can't claim that this is a natural strength. I've definitely made a ton of mistakes with this. I've tried loads of different things. LinkedIn is the place where I spend most time and hang out. And I try to do a monthly blog that actually gives content for free, that actually, adds value to whoever might read it and listen to it. And so that's good. But I think referral is a big one. Everybody talks about referral. That is a powerful one. Sometimes that referral doesn't always happen automatically. So what I've learned is don't assume it's going to happen. Actually ask for it. And especially if you've overserved someone or served someone free, to be able to say, look, I really enjoy coaching you. I'd love more clients just like you. Is there anyone that comes to mind? So that's been helpful in my feedback form as well. I always ask them, is there anybody, would you be willing to share an email address with me of somebody that might be interested in what we have to offer with permission? So I would do that. We've tried sending out messages. I've had somebody doing that for me, and we haven't had a lot of success on sort of LinkedIn in mails. We haven't had a lot of success from that. But what I have found has worked is when I focus on 5 individuals in my life who I've identified as movers and shakers, as people of influence. And I've served them and I've prioritized calls with them, often for free. And I've played the long game. It's not just a means to an end. These will be people who I love hanging out with anyway. These will be people who it's iron sharpens iron. It's people who you think I can learn from them along the way, but also this is something that is both ways. And I found that works really absolutely brilliantly. You know, somehow like they're enriched by hanging out with somebody with coaching tools, and I'm enriched by their energy and by the opportunity they have. And quite often what's happened with those 5 is they find themselves moving up where they are or moving on into something better, and then they want to bring you with them and give you an opportunity. So that's been a really good technique for me.
Interesting. So, you know, you mentioned those 5 individuals, right, at a time, I guess. Have you noticed any patterns between those like individuals at all? Like common themes or, yeah.
That's a really good question. I think that they will be people who are willing to be spontaneous and think outside the box. You know, there'll be people who, whether that's natural or whether they've learned to do it, they will pick up on opportunities and say, okay, yeah, let's go for that. You know, let's do it now. Or why not? You know, why don't you come in on this with me? So there'll be people who have got where they are because their ear is to the ground and they aren't just blinkers on moving forward, you know, in a linear fashion, but they're actually listening to all of the different information that's coming in. So I've noticed that about them. They're often future thinkers, often people who are concerned to always be moving ahead and building, people who want to make progress. Although they could also be those faithful people as well, who want to lead an organization. I've got one person in mind right now. He's always been an advocate for us right from the start. And he was the first person, actually, we did a big launch party and we had 70 plus people who joined us. It was a brilliant evening in May. And I'd been given the advice beforehand, look, just when you're looking out of the room, when you're doing your launch and you're really wanting to sell yourself well, just pick one person in the room and think, if they say yes, if they want us, then we've won. You know, don't try and get all 70. There's just no way, even though we all want that. And I picked him in my head. Didn't tell anyone. And that very night after the event, he was the only one who emailed me to say, I mean, people emailed to say various different things, but he said, I want you, I'm ready, call me tomorrow. And yet he is, because we do lots of personality deep dives, he's not that future thinker. He is that faithful person, really looks after his people and has built, you know, a real influence because he is a person of his word, but he's also a person who really desires growth.
I see a common theme here, intention. Like this is the common theme.
Yes, that's the salmon.
And so let's move on because like, okay, now that we understand the marketing, like you're focusing on very individual people and whatnot, people are like raising their hands, whether it's like, they're just like, oh my God, Laura, how do I work with you, right? And so you did mention your different containers. You do a bit of one-on-one, you do workshop for teams, for nonprofits and other businesses and stuff too. I guess like, yeah, like walk me through how you came up with your offerings, you know?
So that was where we were at the beginning. Where we've come to now is for me to hold a strategic space. That's my happy place. So we came up with our offerings through Giant Worldwide, who gave us the toolkit and who we trained with, who are an awesome community. That got me started. But since then, it's been working with a variety of clients from all different sectors. And it's about keeping my ear to the ground about what their needs are. So at the moment, we've got a lot going on about feedback. That's been a huge theme for us in this season, is people want to know, how do we give healthy feedback? How do we learn to receive feedback? How do we work that into all of our performance reviews and so on? So we're becoming, I think, an expert in that particular area. So that's one place is putting your offering where the need is. So what's the pain? What's the problem? How can we help fill that gap? How can we solve that in a way that smashes the deliverables of that? So that's what we do now. But my space now that I've built a team, so Salmon was always meant to be a team. That's the beautiful thing about Salmon. They don't go alone. They never go up the river alone. They go as a team, they go as a pack. And it's just exciting. And that actually helps them not to get picked off by predators, and it helps to keep them
Yeah.
strong. And they get in each other's slipstream and so on. And they even rest together. You know, not that long ago, Stephen Bartlett did a podcast where he said, why do leadership companies talk about salmon? And actually, they're always busy. They're always going up there. You know, people need to rest. And I'm like, well, that's salmon rest. You know, you haven't done your research. The salmon rest in the cool rock pools. They chill. And that's a really important thing, is finding out who you need around you. And the only way you can know that is by knowing yourself first, knowing who you are and knowing your strengths, what energizes you, and then putting the people around you that have complementary things that energize them. So that has been huge for us. So my vision for the business now, and where the space I'm in now, is I love to meet with companies of, you know, big or small. But if they're big, that's not a problem, because I have that strategic way of looking at things where we go, right, let's plan out the work. And then we have the experts in those different spaces. You know, I have people now who do amazing one-to-ones working through with team leaders, also with employees, new onboarding. And then that leaves me and one or two other colleagues working with that C-suite and actually planning out the work as a whole. So as a team, we work best. That's the work we're doing at the moment that I'm most excited about.
Sounds like what you're doing is pretty intimate. How do you go about managing your current client capacity so your cup stays full? Because you also mentioned you're a mom, you have a family, you're balancing the work. How do you make sure that you have a room for yourself?
That is so important, isn't it? It's so important to look after yourself, and building the team is part of that, a huge part of that. So being able to delegate, and I think this is something that we as coaches can often neglect to do, either because we don't plan ahead, or because we perhaps think sometimes that people want us, which can be, you know, a bit egotistical, really. But actually delegate, give the work away. So, you know, I have a couple of regular groups that I'm coaching at the moment, but last week it was a school holiday, and I just had others holding that space, other colleagues that held that space. And actually that's win-win, because the group then gets someone else's input, get a different perspective, a different coaching style from mine. And I got to be really present with my family without, you know, having to say, I've got to go on a call now. So I think building the team, having people who you can absolutely trust to lead the way you want them to lead, is the first one. And then the second one is get as much help and input as you can. So again, I'm going to own a mistake. You know, I've got a cold today, and it's partly because I haven't looked after myself as well as I usually do. And that's because I rely a lot on my husband to coach me, and I coach him. He's had a lot going on at the moment, so I haven't been able to process externally as much as I usually do. And I think I've been therefore not sleeping so well, because I'm waking up thinking about things, not stress, but just exciting things that I haven't actually said out loud. So I've just since then realized that's actually something that's amiss. So I've got someone else that I've lined up to give me some coaching. So they're going to coach me, and also therapy as well, you know, go back to go forward. So I've also lined up someone to do some therapy work with me as well. And I just think it's not an indulgence. Therapy, spiritual direction, if that's what you're saying, coaching, it's not an indulgence, it's a necessity. You know, because we have to be the healthiest person in the room, whether it's with one person, whether it's with a group of executives, whether it's with a massive hall for a keynote speech. We've got to be the healthiest person in the room, and that has to be real, because it will be sniffed out in a moment if it's not.
I love your different modalities that you have. One of the ones that perked up my ears was delegation. It sounds like you have a team of, like, not only, yes, you have a therapist, you have your coaches and stuff, but it sounds like you have a team that you've kind of hired to take some of the load off from you.
Yes. So I would say that one thing I've done is I've not hired anybody per se. I've partnered with self-employed people, and that's really important. I think that hiring people is great. At the moment in the UK, it's not the conditions aren't brilliant for hiring people. There's so much involved with that. And I've seen clients have to hire people and then let them down, disappoint them, and actually put a lot of pressure on themselves and pay others a lot more than they're able to pay themselves. And I think what I'd rather do is give from an overflowing cup. That's been my philosophy at the moment. And I'm not saying that wouldn't change, but what I've built up is a group of partners who either solely or mainly work with us. But I've always said there's no guarantee that you will be given work. I still want you to be marketing your own work, marketing yourself. But it is my passion and it's my goal to be able to, water the fields of other brilliant coaches who maybe don't enjoy the sales aspect as much as I do, or the new onboarding or the strategic thinking aspect as I do, but are absolutely brilliant in that one-to-one space or in that workshop space, that small group space. They are incredible. Patience, their attention to detail, that's different from someone who holds the strategic piece. It's a different kind of coaching outlook and aspect. So I think that delegation aspect is hugely important, but it's a balance to make sure that you don't put pressure on yourself to overpromise. You don't overpromise and then feel you have to step back. That can be really painful. I've seen that with clients occasionally.
Yeah. I think one of the things that you're as you're speaking, I think you mentioned something about impact and and this actually leads me to my next question. What are some of your future goals? Like when you think about this coaching business, where do you want to take you in the next few years? Do you have desires to scale? Do you want to hire more? Do you have secret dreams that no one knows about? I would love to hear about it.
You ask good questions, Kevin. I do like them. I think
sometimes a bit cheeky.
No, ask away. I love it. I think something that is fairly new that was coined by my colleague and my mentor, Steve Cochran, is this phrase, Chief Fractional Performance Officer. And that's where I want to go. And a Chief Fractional Performance Officer is someone who can work alongside a C-suite, but not in a full-time capacity, but is brought into the most important strategic conversations and is able to bring with them the data, the measurements, the tools, the communication, the coaching aspect to be able to get the company from where it is to where it wants to be in terms of performance and culture. And it's those two things. It's different to an HR aspect. It's very much about results. And I love that because when I was a teacher, that's what really motivated me, was to help these kids get the best results they possibly could, and it just, I'll never forget, not that long ago, actually, I had a message from a guy who'd been in my A-level class years ago, who's an incredible businessman now. He's doing really well. And he never, ever thought he'd get an A. At the time, it was an A. He never thought he'd get an A. He's entrepreneurial. Lots of entrepreneurs don't shine so much at school in the academic space. And he just said to me, Laura, I know I've said this before, but I just want to tell you what it meant to me to get an A. I never thought I would get an A-level ever in my life. It gave me such confidence to be where I am now. And that same motivation, some teachers just, have different motivations because of wiring. They want to create a wonderful culture in the classroom, and that's awesome. And you need teachers like that. I wanted to bring support, but also a lot of challenge so that they could really get that best result they could possibly get. And that still motivates me today, is results. Yeah. I want my clients to get results, and I love it when they do. It's exciting. It's not surprising, but it's still delightful. It's really incredible. I love it.
Yeah. Kind of curious, do you have any thoughts of expanding it just beyond yourself? Or do you like keeping it pretty intimate?
So it doesn't feel like it's myself because, as I say, we have built a team. There's a resident team for Salmon without the sort of pressure around having multiple employees. That would drain me to have to do the people management side of that, all the administration of that. I mean, obviously lots of that would be delegated, but Salmon is a community. It doesn't work without that team. So yes, I do. I would love, my goal is, to multiply what we're doing by 5 in the next 1 to 3 years, the income. And that's because I want us to keep growing. I want to keep investing in the company, but also I want to be liberating this team, other coaches, as much as possible, whilst maintaining flexibility for family life. So as we grow, more and more gets filtered down to others, keeping me really sort of time rich rather than more and more time poor.
Something I'm also interested about. I think on Instagram or social media, sometimes you just see all the highlight reels of like, oh yeah, my business is doing super, super well, or I hit this goal or whatever, right? But as we know, when we take a peek behind the curtains, some people call them challenges. I call them growing pains. And so my question to you is like, what sort of growing pains are you kind of noticing in this season of business right now? Is there anything unexpected?
That's really good. So presently, what growing pains are there? I think one thing that can be quite hard is convincing people of the ROI of coaching if they haven't already been convinced. So it can sometimes be easier to come into a company that have already got an established leadership performance budget and say, okay, you've tried some other things, like, try this now and just see the impact of this. That's much easier because it's already there. I think it feels quite like hard work to try to sell what we do and to create that understanding of the impact, that this isn't just another outgoing, this isn't just another cost, or that there isn't a price to it. We try not to use those phrases. It's not a price, it's an investment cost. But here are the benefits. And, coaching is well known that it delivers 7 times what you put in if it's done well, if it's good coaching. And so helping people just to join the dots to see we're doing really well, and that's because of, in part, because of what you're doing here to help make our culture healthy and high performing. So that's the work. And I think it surprises me that we don't have as much of that culture in the UK, like lots of my colleagues in the US. It's everywhere. It's obvious. I don't know how you found it, but in the UK, I think there's still that awakening to how important this is.
Yeah, because coaching is definitely one of those things when you go through it intrinsically, the transformation that we go through, we know it's very, very meaningful. But especially for like businesses or people who they treat it like sales, right? Or marketing. Like there's a direct KPI that leads to the exact dollar, right? And my question to you is like, I know it's really, really difficult, but I'm always so curious how coaches do it. How do you connect the dots to like people that it is an investment versus just like a fixed cost or a cost, like a cost in general, right? Or an expense?
That's so good. So I think in your conversation, when you get to that place where you can have a conversation about working together potentially, you really need to get into the pain that they're experiencing and the problems off the back of that. There's a model called Foursquare that's been really helpful to us. And you have to kind of like repeat it back, say, so what I'm hearing is, I was on a call like this just yesterday, so what I'm hearing is that the pain is that there's a hierarchical culture that stays, and that is leading to these problems. It's leading to people not feeling psychologically safe. And so then you can present that there's a gap. So there's a gap here, isn't there? And then ask them, what do you think will happen if this problem isn't addressed? So it's being able to play into those gaps by asking those sorts of questions and holding back on offering the solution straight away. And that's definitely a tendency of mine, is I want to solve problems and I can do them too quickly. That's something I've had to learn over time is, I honestly, a big mistake I used to make was, let's button all this up. So I'll do my Foursquare and then I will send you an amazing proposal with 18 months worth of work in it. And it was overwhelming. It was way too much. And I've just had to, my husband says, you've got to date before you ask people to get married. So it's good, isn't it? So what I've realized is you have to solve the immediate problem. You have to solve the immediate problem and you have to go, okay, so if feedback is the problem or if the hierarchical culture is the problem, why don't we taste and see? Just taste. Why don't you bring me in? When's your next away day? When's your next company all together? Let's do a keynote on that. Let's speak into that. Or why don't you watch this one that we've done before and see whether you think that could work with us? Or let's just do a 1 hour toolkit. I'll do it for free. I want to give you the opportunity to test us out, because we back ourselves that it will be hugely beneficial and it will blow you away. So it's about that, being willing to just create relationship before the opportunity for a partnership that's lucrative.
One thing that I know we're on the topic of investments, but I was thinking about that self-care question I asked you before, right? And coaching is very, very similar, where it's like, I find it very ironic sometimes when there's like a coach who wants to sell their own coaching services, but they've never gotten coaching themselves, which I think is super ironic, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm kind of curious, like, what are some investments that you've kind of found very, very helpful for you as well? Like, I would love to kind of hear about that, because you mentioned that you kind of invest in coaching right now. You invest in therapy, a lot of different things. But what have been the most like memorable investments for yourself?
Well, I think I referred earlier to the first one, which would be doing the 5 Voices training with Giant Worldwide, where I was part of a learning community for that session. So I know lots of coaches that say being part of a learning community to equip you with tools, but also to apply them to yourself initially. That was huge for me. And that really opened the door to understanding myself so I could lead myself well. And then the second one was a course called PLB's Predictive Leadership Behaviors, which is based off Myers-Briggs, but it also has a whole lot more to it as well. And that's run by Giant London. And that was incredible. And that came about because I was hoping for an opportunity to work on a particular project. There was a number of coaches that were being asked to step into a strategic opportunity in the US. And I was in conversation with the person that was sort of planning out that work. And I just asked about it. I said, would you consider me? And he said, absolutely, but you don't have this qualification. And he said, I'm afraid that it's just essential to do this work with C-suite. You have to really be sure on their voice order. And the only way to be sure on their voice order is to do the MBTI deep dive alongside the predictive leadership behaviors work that goes alongside it. It's that valuable. And I thought, okay, failure, I wasn't picked, but feedback. Okay, that's the missing piece, right? Okay. It's a lot. It's a big investment. It's a lot of resource. It's a lot of time. It's a lot of money, but I did it. I said, I'm going to do it. So I put myself on this course, and obviously I'd earned the money back almost immediately. It paid for itself like within a month or two, because I just thought, this is so right. It was brilliant for me. And it was really, really brilliant for my coaching as well. And it built that confidence to get to that place where I said I was earlier, where I feel confident to coach anyone, because the tools I have and the experience, the reps, the commitment I've got to it, the team I've got around me are so good that I really feel we can hold that space and are holding that space for the people who perhaps, just I've been looking for something more in coaching. And that's the feedback we get is, wow, I've done a lot of coaching. I've been involved in a lot of different leadership courses and so on, but I've never seen anything like this. So that was a brilliant investment, not only in my career and in my confidence in what I do, but also in myself as well, to understand myself at that much deeper level. What stress triggers I have. How do I get myself back into high performance if I start to spiral down? Who do I need around me? Why do I view the world in that way? Who do I prioritize to bring in to, our company and into our home, even if we need any help at home? What do we have on the bench, and therefore where are the gaps? These are just essential things for anyone in leadership to understand.
Well, Laura, I know we're almost at time here, but final question of the night. How can people find you and connect with you?
Thank you, Kevin. Well, I'm on LinkedIn, Laura Mears, and also Salmon Leadership Development. So that's a really nice, easy way. Also, our website, salmonswimming.com. And there's a link to the Five Voices assessment that I mentioned earlier. If you do the assessment on there, then that automatically triggers a response from us, and you'll be in touch with us from there. So yeah, I'd love to hear from anybody that is hearing what I'm saying and is chiming for them, because I just love working with people who are hungry for health, high performance, healthy culture. Those are the buzz phrases of the Salmon.
So as I'm looking back at my really messy handwriting, earlier I mentioned I was a drug dealer and I was a pharmacist, right? I can barely read my writing sometimes. But as I reflect on our conversation, there's a few things that really stood out to me. One was kind of the courage to have that career change and step away from your career in education. I thought that showed a lot of courage there. The second thing I really took away is like your thought process. I noticed this theme of consistently investing in yourself through these. You can tell it's really, really, really important to you. And I hope that's a lesson for like a lot of the coaches listening to this. But the final one I want to save was the salmon and the story of the salmon, and the one word that came to mind, which was intention. And you can see it baked throughout your whole arc, and it'll probably be in your future arcs as well. Anyways, Laura, that's my long-winded way of saying, hey, I appreciate your work. Your work matters. And thank you so much for sharing your time, your story, your experiences, your wisdom on this podcast today. Thank you so much, Laura.
It was a pleasure.
That's it for this episode of Career Coaching Secrets. If you enjoyed this conversation, you can subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you're listening to this episode to catch future episodes. This podcast was brought to you by Purple Circle, where we help career coaches scale their business to $100,000 years, $100,000 months, or even $100,000 weeks, all without burning out and making sure that you're making the impact and having the life that you want. To learn more about our community and how we can help you, visit joinpurplecircle.com.